Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Farrell and I serve as the Vice Dean of the Business School. And it is my privilege to welcome you today to our new building and to your program. Welcome to the MBA students and MA students. Welcome to the MBA students and the MSA students. And thank you to the MA students for joining us for today's special event. This is a wonderful moment in the history of the school, and you are here to make it reality. We thank you for that. I'm excited to welcome you to Farrell Hall. You are the very first group of students who will complete your program in this amazing facility. There is no doubt in my mind that this is one of the very best academic facilities in the country today. And it is our privilege to welcome you to it today. While the building is amazing and will have a positive impact on your learning experience, and is a fitting home to the amazing program that you'll be pursuing starting today, what makes our school special are the wonderful programs, the very successful programs that our faculty and staff and previous generations of students have built for you, and the wonderful colleagues, the wonderful people that we have here to serve you, our faculty and staff. And let me take a minute to speak about what makes our programs special. There are many reasons for that, but I'll only focus on 3 this morning. The main reason, one of the key reasons that our programs are special is because of what we teach in those programs. A lot of schools do a good job in teaching the basic technical fundamentals of your discipline, whether it's accounting or business. And we will do that, but we'll do more than that. We'll focus on 2 other areas to help you develop as true business professionals. The one area that we'll focus and distinguish ourselves from other schools is what we call practical competence. Not only are we going to teach you the fundamental basics of the discipline, but we'll teach you how to take that theory and apply it to real practice. We'll teach you negotiation skills, communication skills, team building skills, and a lot of other skills that you will need to be effective in taking the theory and applying it to messy reality. We will call that developing your practical competence. In addition to developing your practical competence, we will work with you to develop your ethical leadership and what it means, your sense of what it means a true business professional with a strong sense of ethics. You will take courses on ethics, on character, on leadership, on professional development, and we will ask you to join a lot of experiences like this one today, where you can learn from leaders who have gone through a lot of experiences to develop their sense of professionalism and leadership. And we hope that will allow you to develop holistically. That is what distinguishes our school from other schools when it comes to professional education. Not only we teach you the fundamentals of business, but we teach you the practical competence that you need to have to take those fundamentals and apply them, and also help you develop your character and your leadership model so you know what the right thing is to do as you move forward with your careers. The second reason our programs are successful is because of the people who are here to support you. In case you don't know it, we have a large group of faculty and staff dedicated to your success, your academic preparation, and your career planning. You will notice that they're here to support you, to challenge you, to cheer you on as you define your goals and you pursue them starting today, throughout the program and beyond once you complete your studies here. These are amazing colleagues that they're dedicated to make sure that you have everything you need, but they will also challenge you and they will expect of you to be excellent as you complete your studies and as you represent our school beyond your graduation. There is no doubt in my mind that you'll always have someone next to you, a peer, a colleague, faculty, and staff to help you if you find a situation that is challenging to you. Finally, our programs are unique because of the way they blend real business leadership with academic know-how. In fact, we're fortunate today to have two distinguished leaders with us who will share their insights and their lessons in just a few minutes. Both of them exemplify the type of leadership, character, and accomplishments that we expect, we hope that you will accomplish as you move beyond Wake Forest. Having the opportunity to learn from such accomplished executives, in addition to learning from your own faculty and staff, provides a rich experience, a rich, deep learning experience that will help you become a more effective business leader. I urge you to take the time to think deeply about the lessons and challenges that these leaders will share with you today and during the rest of your program. Their insights are gifts that can benefit you for a long time. It is now my honor to introduce the first speaker on the program, our own Dean Steve Reinemann. We're truly fortunate to have such a gifted leader and person of character running our school. Dean Reinemann has a long career that spans the US Marines, Marriott, IBM, Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay, and PepsiCo. In his last corporate role, he was the CEO and chairman of PepsiCo. He joined Wake Forest in 2008, and the reason we're standing in this building today is because of his vision and his leadership. So please take a minute and help me give him a round of applause for making this a reality for us. Once Steve completes his remarks, he will introduce our second speaker, our keynote speaker, who is an equally accomplished business leader, and I'm looking forward to hearing from both of them. I learn from Steve every day, and I'm excited that he will share some of those lessons with you today, and I'm looking forward to learn from Mr. McDonald as well. Congratulations, and welcome to Wake Forest. Thank you.
From the boss. Charles who runs this school, and let there be no doubt about it, so I do everything he tells me to do. He's told me to be here this morning, so that's why I'm here. I'm here to welcome you to your first day of your business education, and for the first day of the formal use of this new building that we have. And you know, traditions, you have a great opportunity to be part of something that is remarkable. Besides your own business education, you're going to be part of the traditions that start in this school. And the things that you do as students will be hopefully all good, and they'll be followed by students that come after you. So rather than let a tradition start that I think is not representative of what we want to do, I'm going to take just a quick break and ask all of you to move forward so that when we come into classrooms and auditoriums, we fill up from the front back. This reminds me, as I look out here, of my childhood going into a Baptist church. Everybody fills from the back. We're going to change that. We're going to fill from the forward going back. So just take a second, and if everybody would just move forward. I am so impressed. My first impression is I want to hire every one of you. And that's the impression you want to create through the rest of your time here at the business school. And as Charles said, you're going to learn a lot about the business world. This morning, I just want to share a few thoughts with you and reflections of my own observations and some challenges. You know, this morning, we want to start setting our expectations so that you can set your expectations. And I know you all decided to come back to business school because you had expectations about your future. And so orientation is sort of about preparing expectations and making sure that we're all in alignment. You understand what you can sort of think about from us. Charles talked about a few of those items this morning in his introduction. And then I hope you'll take the rest of this week before the academics really start in full swing to reform what you expect to get out of your education here. You all have worked very hard to earn the right to be here. You would not have been selected to attend the programs you're in if you weren't excellent at what you did. You've had 16 plus years of education where you've excelled in other aspects of your life, and you've chosen to come here to spend 1 or 2 years in preparation for a business career. And I would just offer you a few thoughts as you sort of put together your list of what you want to do in the next 1 or 2 years. My own background is I got out of the Marine Corps and entered the business world and quickly recognized that I needed something to supplement my engineering background if I wanted to be successful in business. So I came back to the University of Virginia and got my MBA, and that was a very rich experience for me. My wife and I have 4 children, and 2 of them are grown, and they both have MBAs. One got his full-time, the other did his as a working professional part-time. And I can say that for the 3 of us, our MBA experiences have been very, very important to the expectations and the preparation we have for life. And I say that to you because you need to be thinking about what it is that this education is going to provide for you. For me, it gave me the opportunity to go out and compete in the world, but it also gave me 2 years to reflect, to dream, to figure out what my passion was, to think about and reconfirm the values that I believed in, so that when I actually went out into the working world, I was fully prepared. You will never have another time in your working career that is as rich in opportunity, in preparation to grow. You'll continue to grow throughout your business career. If you're going to be successful, you're going to continue to strive to learn more. But you'll never have as much time to reflect as you do these 2 years. And I hope that you'll take that opportunity and use it well. And if you think the business education is only the technical skills that you're going to get during the program, then I would strongly urge you to think about whether this is the right program for you, because there are other ways to get strictly technical education. Online, for instance, is quite a good method of getting technical education. What we offer here is much more than that. And Charles talked about the 3 objectives of what we have here. Well, what I want to share with you this morning is sort of my leadership model that I've developed over 30 years in business. I've been a student of leadership for many years. I've sort of formulated this model of what leadership is all about. Now, I don't offer it to you because I think it should be your leadership model. I only offer it to you because I hope that if you haven't already developed what you think a leader is and the criteria for leadership, that I hope that during the next few days and the next year or 2, that you will strongly develop the criteria of how you're going to evaluate yourself as a leader and how you're going to evaluate those who you work with. Because that model will be an important part of the leader that you become. The model that I have come to has really changed. It's morphed over the years, and in fact, in today's world of Googling, you can go back and sort of figure out where people have come from and the things that they've said over their years. And I've talked about leadership for many years and changed some of the key words, but the basic principles have been the same. And it came together because I was able to sort of reflect, particularly over the last few years since I've been here, on the mistakes that I've made as a leader, on failures and successes that I've had and that I've observed in others. I've watched winning teams accomplish objectives that people thought were unachievable and impossible. I've seen lives, families, communities affected by good and bad leadership in the United States and around the world. And I've watched colleagues climb the corporate ladder to success and meet failure. And many of the reasons for that are self-inflicted. And it's from these life experiences that I want to share my leadership model with you this morning. And as I've studied the successes and failures of others, I've developed a simple model that I try to remember with 4 key words: character, competency, commitment, and compassion. Character, competency, commitment, and compassion. And we'll start with character. Character is the single, in my opinion, character is the single most important trait of a successful leader. And in my opinion, the failure of character is the most prevalent cause of business and personal failure. A failure of character. What does a failure of character mean? I guess in its simplest form, it means a leader who knows right from wrong, and a leader with an internal compass and who under all circumstances and situations does the right thing. And it's way too simple to think of character simply as honesty. Certainly a part of it, but there's much more to that. Character is based on a foundation of core beliefs, and for many that foundation of core beliefs, the inner drive of what causes you to do what you do, is for many people emanates from their faith and their religion, but it comes from other places as well. And I've worked with outstanding leaders around the world who have had a basis for their character in a number of different ways. But character, whatever the basis for that character is, it has to be learned, it has to be practiced, and it's proven over time in what I like to call the crucible of life. And sort of think of what are some of the sort of aspects of character as you try to define it. It's the strength of character that inspires high goals, but also expects those goals to be achieved with integrity, and only results with integrity count. It's strength of character that always gives straight and honest feedback to your boss, to your team, and to the market when avoiding conflict is much more comfortable. It is strength of character that doesn't just execute the status quo, but thinks about the right thing to do and then stands up for it regardless of the cost. I would encourage each one of you as you begin this chapter in your development here at Wake Forest to address this issue of character development in your own life. Use the 1 or 2 years that you have to really test what those character principles are in your own life. And although this whole idea of character is far more than lying, I would point out on this first day of orientation that we take cheating and lying very seriously here at Wake Forest, and that we are committed to the honor code, and that we hope that as you think about your upcoming education here, you will take that commitment very seriously. And I would ask you to cement in your mind about your education here at Wake Forest what a famous philosopher once said: "I would rather fail with honor than to succeed by fraud." The temptations you're going to have here are very similar to the temptations you're going to have in the marketplace. And the success you have in dealing with those temptations are going to prove to be the success or failure of your career. The second point is competency. And Charles talked very well about competency and what we're trying to teach here. I think of competency in 2 very distinct ways. Sort of educational, technical competence, and then practical competence. In my own business experience, I've seen leaders who were very effective in one of those 2 and would fail. Because technical competence without the practical ability to practically implement that doesn't work in the marketplace. And practical pragmatic leadership without technical competence doesn't work in today's world either. It's the combination of those two. And you'll have plenty of opportunity to test those two areas. You'll certainly be presented with the technical competence through your classroom, and you'll also have the opportunity to learn. Many of you come here with tremendous experience in the marketplace before you came, so we'll add to that competency through your time here. One of the things that I've noticed, particularly in the last 10 years, and as I've had the last 5 years to sort of reflect on the failures in the marketplace that happened in 2008, so much of the criticism in the press about the failures were accusing leaders of character flaws, when in fact, I believe in many cases that those weren't character flaws, although there were probably a fair number of character flaws, but a lot of it was flaws in competency. Leaders that didn't have the preparation and the scope and the breadth and the global view to look at issues in a way that would give them an opportunity to make the best answers, the best decisions. So many of the mistakes that were made, particularly in the financial markets, in my judgment, were more about competency than they were about character. But certainly between the two of them, you can probably define most of the issues that we face. But we also have a lot of great leaders out there that you can model your careers after as you think about modeling your own career as it relates to competency. We have leaders like Ken Chenault at American Express, and Howard Schultz at Starbucks, and Ursula Burns at Xerox, and our own speaker this morning, Bob McDonald at P&G. The one leader that I like to think about as it relates to competency is Steve Jobs at Apple, because here you have a leader who technically, some people might say, is one of the most brilliant business minds we've had in our day, but he also had, through the crucible of failure, he learned how to take his technical competency and put that into practice. And just a little history, those of you who haven't read his book, he started a company, amazing success, and he actually gets kicked out of his own company because he really couldn't manage the business that he developed. And he went off and he didn't get discouraged, he continued to learn, he developed other companies, and he came back to that company and reinvented it and took it from basically bankruptcy to the highest market cap in the world over the course of a few years, sort of never been done before type of meteoric rise. And it's because of his competency. Technical competency and practical experiences turned into great leadership. So that to me is a great example of the kind of competency that we should all strive to achieve. Third trait is commitment. Commitment is defined in many different ways, but simplistically I like to think about it as the fire in the belly, the goal line orientation, the drive to reach the goal regardless of the challenges. And for those of you who've been in the workplace, I think you would probably agree with me, it's fun to work with a leader who has passion, a leader who is driven, a leader who has vision, and no matter what happens, no matter what obstacle, they're not deterred, they find another way to go. And that's magnetic leadership, and it comes in lots of different styles. There are charismatic leaders that are passionate, there are quiet leaders that are passionate, but you can tell that inner drive of a committed leader. And the commitment is not easily measured in traditional terms. In fact, the Wall Street Journal published an article last year called Measurements That Mislead. Some of you probably read this, and I like to think about it because it really does help us in academics recognize that some of the traditional ways that we define success aren't always true. The article talks about a researcher who did a correlation of SAT scores predicting college success. And the test results predicted 12% of individual variation in GPA was attributed to success. In other words, you could get about a 12% prediction rate of people who had successful GPAs, successful SAT scores that would succeed in college. Now, I think Derek would probably be able to get up here and quickly explain the significance of 12%. But if I remember my old quant days, that is not acceptable. And I don't think if you bring that result to one of Derek's classes, I think you'll probably fail that particular test, because what you're looking for is a number way above 12%. But what it basically says, what causes people to be successful in academic performance? Obviously, you need to have a base level ability to compete, but it's that drive, it's that commitment, it's that goal orientation that causes students to be successful. And you see that in the academic world, you see it even more in the business world. So commitment, I think, is important. And the main reason that this test doesn't really work very well, I haven't got a better one, at least although there's some people working on one, it doesn't measure grit, it doesn't measure self-control, and it doesn't measure commitment to a goal and what causes somebody to be driven. And I've seen this in business time and time again. One of the best examples that's meaningful to me is my longtime mentor who hired me out of business school, Bill Marriott. Bill is 82 years old. He was CEO and chairman for 40 years. He's now the non-executive or the executive chairman, and he still visits 200 hotels a year. And when he walks into a hotel, it's like a rock star up here. I've never traveled with a rock star, but I was at the Boston Copley Hotel one day with Bill Marriott, and it was like, I felt like I was in there with some famous performer. And the reason for that is that he is so committed to the people and to the success of the company and the field. That is commitment. And whenever I think of commitment, there's a lot of sort of visualizations that come back to me. The one that comes back to me most often is about a story that my mother used to read to me when I was a kid. And some of you may remember this book, but it's called The Little Engine That Could. Anybody remember that? The Little Engine That Could? Let me just read a passage from The Little Engine That Could. A little railroad engine was employed about a station yard for such work as it was built for, pulling a few cars on and off switches. One morning it was waiting for the next call when a long train of freight cars asked a large engine in the roundhouse to take it over the hill. I can't. That's too much for me to pull, said the great engine built for hard work. Then the train asked another engine and another, only to get excuses and to be refused. In desperation, the train asked the little switch engine to draw it up the grade and down the other side. I think I can, puffed the little locomotive and put itself in front of the great heavy train. As it went on, the little engine kept bravely puffing, faster and faster. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And it neared the top of the grade, which had so discouraged the larger engines, it went more slowly. However, it still kept saying, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. It reached the top by drawing on bravery, and then went on down the grade, congratulating itself by saying, I thought I could, I thought I could. As you think about the challenges you're going to have in the next year or two, in your education and your business challenges beyond that, think about that little engine. Or think about some story or some experience that you had that you can draw back on that give you that extra push at times when you need it. It certainly has helped me. The third challenge is really, in summary, to be committed. Be committed to what? Be committed to developing that moral compass. Be committed to academic excellence. Be committed to understanding yourself and discerning what the right future is for you and for your family. So that's the third, and let me just close with the fourth It's about compassion. Now, one might say compassion is a part of character, and it certainly is. But I think it needs extra attention in days like this for several reasons. It's certainly part of the way we should always act, and many of us do, and some of us don't. The true inside and outside of business is that compassion is what, in my judgment, in my experience of watching others, is what distinguishes good leaders from great leaders. We all set high goals for ourselves and for others. I had the fortunate opportunity to work for some really great bosses in my day. One of the ones that had tremendous influence on me was Wayne Calloway, who was the chairman of PepsiCo, and I worked for him for 10 years. And Wayne was a tenacious competitor. And anybody who challenged and didn't think because he had a low-key style and temperament that he wasn't competitive truly misjudged Wayne Calloway. But he believed in results with integrity, and he had enormously high standards for himself and for others. And when you didn't measure up, you knew that there were going to be consequences. But he had amazing compassion. And I watched him over my 10 years take several people out of key big jobs, tough decisions, decisions that none of us like to make. But you know, every one of them remained friends with Wayne, and he helped them find their next spot, and he cared for their family. And it didn't just end the day that he spoke to them. It carried on beyond that, and that's compassion. There are many other areas of compassion, but that's certainly one that struck me. We are in a very difficult time, and the reason why I'm pulling out compassion separately and everything else, I think as you enter your work careers, and as I reflect on where we are as a country, as a world, capitalism has never been more tested than it is today. And if we as leaders in the capitalist system don't start practicing more of conscious capitalism, compassionate capitalism, the consequences are dire. The greatest challenge worldwide, Reed Zakaria last week had a great editorial, I don't know if you saw it, but he talked about the greatest challenge in the world today is the widening gap between classes and the issues that come from that widening gap. And there are many people who think that capitalism is not a way to close that gap. I personally believe it is. But it's not going to be cutthroat capitalism. It's not going to be capitalism as demonstrated by many of my peers and leaders before me. It's leaders in your generation that are going to redefine capitalism in a way that brings others along. As great leaders, you know, we all have desires to be successful individually, but great leaders bring others with them. Not only others in their families and in their companies, but in society. And it's our role as leaders to make a difference for our families, for our companies, for our communities, and for the world. You have a tremendous opportunity to do that. It's not easy. It's a balancing act. It's a challenge to balance all the priorities, but I think this whole idea of compassion is one that I hope you'll think about over the next couple of years as you define the model for yourself. So those are the sort of 4 C's. We'll have a chance to talk about them both informally and formally over the course of your time here at Wake Forest. The best time to talk about these types of issues is Thursday morning at 6:30 at Dawn with the Dean, which will start on September 5th. I encourage you to be out there. I'll close with one story about Dawn with the Dean. In our first year, this will be the 6th year we had this. In our first year, we had a woman show up in the first run named Erin. And I've asked Erin for permission to talk about this. I won't mention her last name, but Erin's familiar with me telling this story. I've told it many times. It was quickly obvious to me that Erin was not
a committed regular runner. Erin had a mission, and her mission was to get a job at the best advertising agency in New York. And this was in 2008. And how many advertising agencies in 2008 were hiring people? Anybody have any idea? Zero. There was no hiring. It was like lockdown. So when Erin came out and we chatted after, she was committed the whole semester. By the way, she became a committed runner, but that's part of what we do at this Dawn with the Dean. But it was obvious she wanted to get that position, and she thought I might be able to help her. And after sort of trying to gather my words of encouragement in a time when I was thinking, you really need to think about a different career, I realized she didn't want to hear that. So over the course of the semester, we worked something out that she actually got an unpaid internship at the agency. Now, she didn't just want to be in an agency. She had a particular agency she wanted to be in. It happened to be the number one. She got a part-time internship at that agency. By the end of the second semester, she had a paid internship. By the end of the summer, she had a full-time job. And the CEO of the agency called me at the end of the summer and told me that she was the best hire that they had had, and that she finished the orientation program in record time. She was committed. Erin was committed. Now, I'm not promising that everybody who shows up at Dawn with the Dean is going to get the job of their dream, but it's these informal places, and Charles alluded to it, but it's in the informal type of opportunities that you're going to have here, whether it's Dawn with the Dean, whether it's the Broyhill Lecture Series, whether it's executives on campus. Outside the classroom, you're going to learn as much as you do inside the classroom if you commit yourself to it. So I hope to see many of you out there. My best wishes to you as you start your career. You're in for a great opportunity here, not only to get a great education, but to be on the ground floor of creating the culture that we want to have here at Wake Forest. And the traditions that you start, you'll be able to come back and see them 5, 10, 15, or 20 years from now. So this is an exciting time to be at Wake Forest, and my congratulations to all of you. And now we have an exciting opportunity to hear from one of the truly great ethical leaders of today. And it's my privilege to introduce Bob McDonald. He's our first Broyhill Distinguished Speaker of the Year, and he's the first Broyhill speaker to address students in the new Broyhill Auditorium. If you didn't know where you were, this is the Broyhill Auditorium. We don't have all the signage up yet, but that's what this is. And we're very grateful to the Broyhill family for their commitment over many years to sponsor bringing outstanding leaders to campus. Bob grew up in Chicago, and in 1971, he was appointed to the United States Military Academy. He served 5 years in the Army, primarily in the 82nd Airborne Division, and achieved the rank of captain. Following his service, he got his MBA at the University of Utah. Actually, that's not true. He actually got his MBA during his service. That might come up today, or you can ask him about it. But when he got out of the Army, he had his MBA. In 1980, he joined Procter & Gamble and served in leadership positions in Canada, Philippines, Japan, and the US. In fact, I think he spent almost as much time outside the US as he did inside the US prior to becoming CEO. He started in brand management, and he held a whole host of positions leading up to his appointment as president and CEO in 2009. Bob retired this summer as chairman, president, and CEO after a 33-year career with the company. During his tenure as CEO of P&G, realized annual sales of $84 billion, employed over 120,000 employees, operated 120 plants around the world, owned 200 brands, with 25 of those brands individually accounting for over $1 billion each. And to top it all off, the P&G stock rose over 50% during his tenure as CEO, from $51 to $82 at a time when many companies saw an opposite direction. Bob is a respected leader both inside and outside of P&G. He's heavily invested in leadership and is widely recognized for his contribution to the study of leadership by his alma mater, West Point. And I begrudgingly would tell you that as a Naval Academy graduate, I must point out that Bob received the Leadership and Excellence Award, the first Leadership and Excellence Award from the United States Naval Academy and the Harvard Business Review. And you gotta know that he's gotta be good to be recognized by the Navy as for their first recipient passing over their own graduates. So Bob is an accomplished speaker and a student of leadership. Bob's been married for 37 years, and he and his wife Diane have 2 children. Now Bob and I have, over the years, had a couple of rivalries. Obviously this Army-Navy rivalry is real, and I would just be absolutely remiss if I didn't say that, you know, it's the most competitive football rivalry in history, but I think we've won the last 12 years.
Yeah.
And we used to have another major rivalry, and that was a large part of my career was at PepsiCo was at Frito-Lay, and my heart is very much at Frito-Lay. And one of the difficulties, I've always had great respect for the leaders at P&G. They've had a whole host of wonderful leaders, and Bob's in a long line of extraordinary people who've made a difference in society. But I've always had a real hard time buying P&G products because when I was at Frito, our largest competitor was Pringles. I mean, you know, they just gave us fits. We had 60% market share and they had 7%, but that was only part of it. It was just a thorn in my side. So I was so delighted that a part of the many things that Bob did well as CEO, he sold Pringles. And the reason that's important is because now I can buy Pampers for my granddaughter, whereas for years I just had to pass them by. I just couldn't do it. So this rivalry is one that we enjoy. Last night we had dinner. We talked about a number of the different things that sort of drive us both. And I don't mean to give you an overdose on military this morning, but Bob is as committed to his career that started and had such a strong influence by his military experience as I have. So it's a real privilege for me to introduce to you our keynote speaker for this morning. Please welcome Bob McDonald. Bob?
It's a real thrill for me to be here today with you, particularly since it's your first day and it's the first day of Farrell Hall, and to be with my friend Steve, who can now be a friend since we sold Pringles. And I think you're really fortunate to be here at Wake Forest. I've known Steve and I've admired him and his leadership for a number of years. And I know that your experience here will really be a great one and will do so well for you in the future. And Steve, I have to say, I'm amazed at how well you've done without a formal education at college. It is true that if you go to the Naval Academy, you see some of the guys playing in bathtubs, some of the ladies playing in bathtubs, and you have the Marines over with the sandboxes. Just kidding. We have a lot of respect for each other. I wanted to start today, not that way. I wanted to start today by talking about leadership. I thought Steve did a great job talking about his 4 C's of leadership. And what I want to do this morning is to suggest to you that now is the time to begin your own study of leadership if you haven't already started. And what I mean by that is now is the time to begin exploring your belief system. Look at the experiences that you've had in your life. Look at the way you've been acculturated. Look at the experiences, particularly the cathartic experiences, the ones you remember. Look at the education you had. Look at the way your family trained you. And from those experiences, develop a set of leadership beliefs, just like Steve demonstrated this morning. And from those leadership beliefs, tie them back to experiences that you had in your life. And don't just think about it, but write it down. Write it down, share it with people in your family who you love and who know you, with friends, colleagues, and have them comment on you as to whether or not that's authentically you. And keep that list of leadership beliefs throughout your life. I've been doing this now for over 25 years, where I have a list of my 10 leadership beliefs. I tie each one of those beliefs back to a cathartic experience I had in my life. And what you'll discover is people that end up working with you and people that end up working for you like to know what your leadership beliefs are. They like to know what your expectations are, just like Steve laid out his expectations for you this morning. It's not too early to start that journey, and it's just so important to be retrospective and introspective about your leadership that I'm encouraging you all to do it today. In fact, I'd be happy to help you if you decide you want to do this. Just email me. My email address is mcdonald.ra@pg.com, and I'd be happy to help you on this journey. Don't worry about getting it right the first time. It will change over time. In fact, that's the idea. I've been changing this thing for 25 plus years that I've been doing it. And as you have new experiences, you're supposed to change your beliefs. So I thought what I'd do for you this morning very quickly is role model for you my 10 leadership beliefs, tell you the experiences they came from, and hopefully in that you'll get your own idea about how you can develop your 10 leadership beliefs. Well, I'm going to start with the first and the most important leadership belief, and that's that living a life inspired and driven by a purpose is more meaningful and rewarding than meandering through life without direction. Fast forward for me, if you would. Imagine you're closer to my age, or Steve's age, and imagine that you're actually older. Imagine you're in a hospital, and you're in a hospital bed here in Winston-Salem, and you're about to die. And somebody, one of your loved ones, one of your family members says to you, "Did you accomplish your purpose in life?" What would you say? Would you say, "Gee, I don't know. I didn't really have a purpose"? Would you say, "Gee, I spent so much time responding to pings on my cell phone, I didn't really have time to think about what my purpose was"? Did you say, "Well, I had a purpose, but I never really wrote it down"? Don't waste your life. Come to grips today with what your purpose is in life. It will change. It certainly will change. It'll certainly modify it. But don't go through life without having a purpose, without having that commitment to a direction that is so critical to your future success. In my life, there's a thread of continuity. And I think as you think of your own life, you'll find threads of continuity. And those threads of continuity will suggest to you what your purpose might be. Now, believe it or not, these 4 pictures are the same person. That's me. On the far left, you have Bobby. Bobby, when he grew up, was a Boy Scout. And I love the Boy Scouts. I love the idea of helping other people at all times, which is the Boy Scout model. In the second picture, that was the day I graduated from West Point. Any of you here students of ancient history? Anybody know who I'm getting my diploma from? President Ford, right, good. You can't see it, but at the bottom, President Ford wrote something to me, and it's what he wrote to me the day I graduated. He gave me my diploma. He said, "Bob, I can't believe you graduated." But I got my diploma from President Ford, and I wanted to be a military officer because I thought by being a military officer, I could serve people. I could help people who were living in non-free societies. There were societies around the world where people weren't free. And I thought by going to West Point, by being a military officer, I could help those people and free them to live free lives. So as Steve said, after I graduated, I went in the 82nd Airborne Division. First went to Ranger School, was in the 75th Ranger Battalion, went to the 82nd Airborne Division because I wanted to be on the front line. I wanted to be where the action was. I figured if you're going to be in the Army, you go to West Point. You're going to go to West Point, you be in the infantry. That's where the action is. And then when it came time, I had gotten my MBA at night and on the weekends, as Steve said, at the University of Utah. When it came time to leave the Army, I was looking for a company that had a purpose similar to my own. And the thread of continuity throughout that life is trying to improve the lives of others in a very small way. And as you can tell, this is a picture from the day I joined Procter & Gamble on June 4th, 1980. As you can tell, we have not yet solved hair loss as a problem. I had a lot more hair then, and frankly, in the Army, because you had to keep your hair short, we all tried to show we had a lot of hair. But that was the day that I joined Procter & Gamble, and I joined the company because of the purpose of the company. The purpose of the company, the values of the company, and the people in the company who represented that purpose and those values every single day. And so as you look to what companies you want to join, I would encourage you to think about the congruency of your own purpose and the purpose of the company that you want to join. In my case, the purpose of the Procter & Gamble company was to improve the lives of the world's consumers now and for generations to come. And frankly, that's one of the reasons I wanted to sell the Pringles business, because I didn't think Pringles was improving lives. And the values of the company, we may have been hurting Steve's life, but the values of the company were also very important to me. Integrity, leadership, ownership, passion for winning, and trust. Those 5 values animated everything we did, and I found that the employees of the company that I associated with lived those values every day. So that's what attracted me to the company, was the congruency of purpose, the congruency of values, and how the people live that every single day. So as you look at your own experience, and you try to come up with your own purpose, look for those threads of continuity in your life. What is it that you've consistently been doing in your life? Because arguably, that is what you're interested in and what your purpose may be. Number 2, companies must do well and they must do good at the same time. In other words, companies have to do well financially, but they have to do good at the same time. I don't think it's any longer acceptable for a company to do well financially, but then not do good at the same time. Steve talked about the conundrum we have today between different income levels around the world and the broadening gap. I think there's a role to play for companies to do well financially, but also do well and do good in the world. And I want to share some examples. At the Procter & Gamble company, this purpose of improving people's lives, we try to make as pervasive as possible in everything we do. We do it in our brands, we do it in our philanthropy, and we do it in the community service of employees all over the world. I want to share an example for you, and it's from our Always brand. Always is a feminine hygiene product. You might not know this, but in many parts of the world, girls don't stay in school because of menstruation. In Kenya, Africa, we discovered that girls were dropping out of school. Once they started menstruating, they didn't have the proper products, the society didn't understand what menstruation was about, and obviously if you don't go to school 1 week out of every month, it's only 2 or 3 months and the girls drop out of school. That's a tragedy. It doesn't have to happen. And half of society ends up uneducated. So what we do is we go into the school, we work with the Ministry of Education, we teach about menstruation. It's a natural process, it's a good process. We provide the products and we keep girls in school. Please watch.
Good morning, school.
My name is Jenny. I live at Ngong Town. I'm 13 years old. I go to school at Ngong Township Primary School. Some of the games that I play at school are football, volleyball, netball, and handball.
My name is Snellis. I'm 13 years old. I go to school to get education so that I'll be a good person in the society.
I got to know about Always when my sister introduced it to me. She told me it's called Always Ultra. They are pads which keep you very dry and comfortable, even if you're in class.
always help me because it makes me feel better. And I just come to school as usual and you cannot even notice.
Some of the things that are most important in my life are my education and my family. Kanisani. Anaimba na kutunga mashairi. I feel very comfortable when I'm using always. It's very important in my life because if I don't have them, I would have been missing school and I would go down academically.
When I use always, I usually come to school and I usually feel better while even playing with my friends there, and I don't feel embarrassment.
A second example is our Children's Safe Drinking Water program. Over 2,000 children die a day from diarrhea or dysentery, from drinking unsafe water. The average woman in the world walks 7 kilometers a day to get water for her family. And typically after she gets the water, she then has to boil it to make it clean. This is a terrific problem around the world, and it doesn't have to happen. We created some chemistry. We call it the P&G Purifier of Water packet, and it makes 10 liters of clean water, which can help a family all day. I've been in many countries of the world, all over the world. Many times I'll be upriver, and I'll see water buffalo or caribou defecating in the water, and go downriver, and there'll be a young boy with a bucket getting water from a pipe, not knowing what was going on upriver. And of course, these people are uneducated about bacteria and viruses, and that's what ends up killing them. Over 2,000 children die a day. It doesn't have to happen. So we've been trying to make a difference with our Children's Safe Drinking Water program. We work with 108 agencies around the world. We go in, we provide clean drinking water, and that keeps people alive. I made a commitment at the Clinton Global Initiative, which is a way President Clinton brings together companies, non-government organizations, and governments to do good in the world. I made a commitment that by 2020, we would save 1 life every hour with our Children's Safe Drinking Water program. President Clinton liked that commitment. To do that, we had to triple the production in our plant in Pakistan and build a new plant, which we built in Singapore. He joined us afterwards and he made some comments about the Procter & Gamble company. When you see this video, you'll see I'm standing off in a corner and he asked me about the commitment I made earlier that day.
Of all the companies I work with, hardly anybody has any bigger dreams than P&G. What did you say at our meeting? You're going to save a life an hour from now on?
1 life every hour.
Yeah, from now on. That's a pretty nice dream for one corporation in a big world that's highly competitive. Just think, even for your size, if every business incorporated in every developed country prorated that commitment down to people with 20 employees that had a fraction of your income. Everybody prorated that commitment. God only knows how many people would be saved. So that's why I honor P&G. Big dreams, song in your heart, reality-based strategy, keep score. If it doesn't work, we'll do something else. If we can learn to live that way, we can get beyond our political and other divisions, and there's not a thing wrong with the country or the world that we can't make better.
So again, number 2 is companies have to do well financially and do good at the same time. Number 3, everyone wants to succeed, and success is contagious. I first learned this with my 1st Infantry Platoon in the 82nd Airborne Division. Most of my soldiers hadn't graduated from high school, and they had spent their entire years listening to society tell them that they were not successful, that they were somehow drags on society. Some of them were given a choice between jail or the Army, and they chose the Army. But what I discovered was everybody wants to succeed. And our job as leaders is to help people succeed and to turn a small task into a small reward, a larger task, a larger reward, and create a virtuous cycle of success. Let's do a small test. This morning when you got up and you rolled out of bed and your feet touched the floor, how many of you said, I'm going to go to Wake Forest University today, and I'm going to prove to Dean Reineman that I am the biggest failure in the whole world. Raise your hand. How many of you are desperate to fail? Please raise your hand. Well, capture that thought for me for a minute. Don't forget that. Nobody here is trying to fail. And I can tell you, as a leader of a large company, all of us are time-starved. We don't have enough time to do the jobs we want to do. And so oftentimes, because we're time-starved, what we end up doing is we manage by exception. We only focus on the things that go wrong, and we don't spend enough time rewarding the things that go right. Any of you parents? Think about your children. Do you spend your time catching them doing something wrong? Or do you spend your time trying to catch them to do something right? I, as a leader, am trying to work harder and harder to commit myself to catching people doing things right. Occasionally, you have to correct them when they do things wrong, but spend more time doing things right. You also find that success is contagious. When I was at Procter & Gamble, we put in a policy called open job posting. What that meant was we put any job that was open on the internet and any employee could apply for it. Well, I volunteered to try this idea in Japan when I was running our Japan operation. And the day I announced it, I had all the general managers who worked for me come to my office and tell me what a dumb idea this was. And I couldn't understand why they thought this was a dumb idea. And it became clear to me that they were worried. They were worried that their employees in their division would choose to join another division. And I thought, this is really great. I like this idea. Because it puts the pressure on the leader. People want to succeed. They want to be part of a successful team. And it's very important that we as leaders create that success within our team to attract others. Number 4, putting people in the right jobs is one of the most important jobs of a leader. Now, Jim Collins writes about this. Jim is a friend of mine, and I think he's one of the very best business authors alive today. In his books, Built to Last and Good to Great, he talks about getting the right people on the bus and getting them in the right seats on the bus. And I think no matter what CEO you talk to, whether it be Steve or myself or any others, they would tell you the single thing that they were most frustrated about is it took them too long to get the right people on the bus and get them in the right seats on the bus. Now you may wonder, well, how do you do that? So let's try another test. Think back for me to your college or high school experience and think for me about the course that you liked the most. Think about the course you liked the most. Everybody got that locked in? Now think about the course you got the best grade in. The course you got the best grade in. How many of you got the best grade in the course that you liked the most? That's good news. We're all human beings. We tend to gravitate to do things that we like, and we tend to gravitate away from things that we don't like. So if you see somebody that's moping around the office every day, or they're unhappy, chances are they're doing something they don't like, and chances are they're doing something they're not good at. So imagine being responsible for a company of 120,000 people. What you'd like to do is take all 120,000 people and put them working on something that they're good at, rather than taking 120,000 people and putting them in something that they're not good at or they don't like. And that's one of the challenges of leadership, is to find the right place for people to really self-realize and self-actuate. Number 5, and this is very consistent with Steve's comments on his 5 C's, one of which is character. I also believe that character is the most important trait of a leader. Now, I describe character a little bit differently based on my military experience. I say character is about putting the needs of the organization above yourself. In the Army, I'm not sure how it is in the Marine Corps, but in the Army, when we would go to deploy and we would eat, the officer would always wait until all the soldiers had eaten before they would eat. In other words, we would stand back and let all the soldiers eat. The idea wasn't that we were going to run out of food. We never ran out of food. But the idea was to prove to those soldiers that their lives were more important than yours. And that's symbolic, but it's very important. If you go into combat, who would you rather work for? Somebody who puts your life as more important than their own, or somebody who's at the front of the chow line demonstrating that their life is more important than yours? The answer is obvious. Another part of character is integrity. We don't lie, cheat, steal. We don't tolerate people who do. Integrity is incredibly important, and it's an important part of character. And the third part of it is taking personal responsibility. This, I found that this is a character element that is somewhat lacking in our society, the willingness to take personal responsibility. But this is something you learn the very first day at West Point. When you're inducted into West Point, you go on July 1st of the year you're there, and you go through something called Beast Barracks, or New Cadet Barracks, that summer before you start the academic year. And the very first day, you learn that as a new cadet, which by the way is the lowest form of life on Earth, deeper in the deepest ocean than the biggest whale, the lowest form of life on Earth, but you discover that you only have 4 acceptable answers to any situation that arises. So imagine I'm in my room, I polish my shoes, my uniform is in good shape, I put it on, I'm going out to formation. As I'm going out to formation, it rained the night before, and one of you steps in a mud puddle, and it sprays my trousers and shoes with mud. Obviously, that's not a good situation. And Steve's an upperclassman, so he comes up to me and calls me to attention and says, "McDonald, you toolbox." I got called that a lot. You toolbox, didn't you shine your shoes? Wasn't your uniform prepared for this formation? So I start thinking through which of my 4 answers I can give. Well, the first of the 4 answers is yes, sir. So I could say, yes, sir. But that doesn't seem a very good response to the question that was asked. I'm just agreeing, and that would just bring more damage to me. The second acceptable answer was no, sir. But if I said no, sir, that would be an honor violation, and I get thrown out of West Point, so that's probably not a good idea. So I relied on the third answer a lot, which is, sir, I do not understand. Every bad situation that happened to me at West Point for the first few weeks, I kept saying, sir, I do not understand. Sir, I do not understand. They finally sent me to the hospital for an audiology test, where you press it. They were convinced I was deaf, even though I passed the audiology test to get in. And it finally dawned on me, because I'm not very smart, I was an infantryman, but it finally dawned on me that the 4th answer was the one I was supposed to use. And the 4th answer is no excuse, sir. Those are some of the most powerful words in the world. No excuse, sir. Now, of course, implicit in that is no excuse and it won't happen again. But no excuse, sir, is an incredibly powerful collection of words. Think about it again. If you're in combat, who do you want leading you in combat? Somebody who takes responsibility? Or somebody who says, gee, I don't know, it wasn't my mistake. Harry or Fred or Sally made the mistake. It wasn't my mistake. Very, very powerful collection of words. Take personal responsibility. Because by taking personal responsibility, you're suggesting that you're learning from that situation and it won't happen again, which is very powerful. This is a collection of words that I picked up at West Point. It's part of the West Point Cadet Prayer, and it's stuck with me throughout my life. I've taught it to my children, and I've taught it to the people that I talk about with leadership. It's a very powerful collection of words. Help me to choose the harder right rather than the easier wrong. Have you ever found that the easy thing is usually the wrong thing? In fact, I would tell people at P&G, if you're doing something and it feels too easy, stop it. It might be wrong. Usually the hardest thing to do is the right thing to do. To build a company over a long period of time is a hard thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. To go after short-term gain is easier to do, but it's the wrong thing to do. So help me to choose the harder right rather than the easier wrong. Number 6, diverse groups of people are more innovative than homogeneous groups of people. We work really hard at Procter & Gamble at getting a diverse workforce. We have a strategy, a dictum of diversity. We wanted our employees to represent the people we're trying to serve around the world, the people whose lives we're trying to improve. We don't have any hope of improving somebody's life if we don't know them, if we don't know their culture, if we don't know their language. Incredibly important. So we worked hard to recruit diverse groups of people, and then we would put diverse groups of people together. By putting diverse groups of people together, you get greater innovation. There's a wonderful book by a fellow named James Burke. He's a science historian. He went to Cambridge, called Connections. And in the book, he shows that innovations never turn out being used for what they're designed for. He talks about how Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone as a hearing aid for hearing impaired people. He worked at a deaf school. He talks about how Marconi invented the radio for two ships to communicate at sea. He never expected that you'd have a radio in your automobile. And then my favorite is Thomas Watson at IBM, the founder of IBM. Here he is in front of one of the original computers. Thomas Watson said that someday the United States will need 2 or 3 computers. It sounds ludicrous today. I studied computer science at West Point. I worked on a computer that was as big as this room, had air conditioners everywhere to keep it running. Today you have that much computing power in your cell phone. The expectation was different. Why Thomas Watson said that? Well, in the days of the first computers, the computer was used to take the census of the country. People would go door to door with things called Hollerith cards, and they would punch holes in those cards. A card reader would read them, and the computer would take the census of the country. So of course you'd only need 2 or 3 computers to take the census of the country. So change almost always comes as a surprise, and innovations come from connecting seemingly unconnected nodes. And what your diversity provides are those disparate nodes. Your diversity are those nodes. And by working together, 2 disparate people, 2 diverse people, you can get more connections and more innovation. So we would purposely put together teams of diverse people to work on various innovations. Now, the difficulty of running an organization that's focused on diversity is the golden rule is no longer good enough. You know, the golden rule, which all of our parents taught us, is to treat other people the way you want to be treated. Well, if you're in a homogeneous society, that works. If you're in a diverse society, you want to treat other people the way that they want to be treated. That's what I call the platinum rule. And it's also puts a bigger responsibility on us as individuals, because if I want to treat you the way you want to be treated, I need to know you, I need to know your family, I need to know your acculturation, I need to know your language, I need to know your culture. But if I'm in the consumer goods business and I'm trying to improve your life, I have to know you. I have to know you with tremendous compassion. Number 7, ineffective strategies, systems, and culture are bigger barriers to achievement than the talents of people. So if something will go wrong in the company, before I would blame any person, I would always look at, am I providing the right kind of leadership? Do we have the purpose, values, and principles as the foundation of the company? Have we provided the technical competence? Steve talked about the big C of competence. On top of that, am I providing the right leadership? Do we have the right strategies? Do we have the right systems, meaning repeatable activities? And do we have the right culture? If we have those things, we have a high-performance organization, and I'm providing the right leadership. If we don't, then I'm at fault, because I'm the leader. So this idea came to me once in 1983. I took a course called Total Quality. Anybody here heard of Total Quality? Dr. Edwards Deming? I took a course of Total Quality, and I was very lucky. I took it from Dr. Edwards Deming before he passed away. Dr. Edwards Deming, if you don't know about him, you should learn about him. He was a statistician that went to Japan after World War II and taught them total quality. It's the reason that Toyota and other Honda and other companies overtook the US car companies in the 1980s. And it's one of the reasons the Japan economy was so strong in the 1980s. When this exercise, Dr. Deming had a big vat of beads. There were white beads and there were red beads. And each one of us had a thing that looked like a ping pong paddle, and there were holes drilled in the ping pong paddle. And Dr. Deming said, put the paddle in the vat of beads, shake it around, get the beads to fall in the holes, take it out, count the number of red beads and the number of white beads. And Dr. Deming said, Bob, your job is to get all red beads. All red beads. So I put the paddle in, I shook it around, I pulled it out. I had some white beads and some red beads. We wrote down the number, I did it again. Same thing, no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get all red beads. And of course, Dr. Deming was screaming at me. In fact, he called me a toolbox again. So I you know, it was consistent with my experience at West Point. No matter how hard I tried, I was getting white beads and red beads. And I thought to myself, well, gee, Dr. Deming's trying to teach me statistics. We're going to take the mean, the median, upper control limit, lower control limit. But that wasn't what he was teaching. At the end of the exercise, he said, this is a metaphor for you of what you do to the people who work for you. Let me explain. On the paddle, the holes were drilled different diameters. And the red beads were a different diameter from the white bead. So no matter what I did, I was always going to get some white beads. And he said, this is what you do to the people who work for you. You give them an impossible task, get all red beads, and you give them an ineffective system, meaning the paddle and the beads were different diameters. Don't forget that. And so before you blame the people in the organization, examine yourself as a leader. Are you providing the right leadership, the right strategies, the right systems, and the right culture for the organization to succeed? Now, remember, number 7 is about giving the people of the organization the benefit of the doubt. Number 8 is the flip side of that, and Steve talked about this when he talked about compassion, is there are going to be some people who won't make it on the journey. You know, number 8 is very simple. There are going to be some people who don't make it on the journey. And just like we were talking about the past CEO of PepsiCo, who had compassion for those people, cared about them as people, and helped them get on to their next stage in life. That's the way I would like to think about this point, is that your commitment to the people is as people, not as employees. And that their lives are very important, and if they need to separate from the company, it's our responsibility as leaders, compassionate leaders, to help them get on with their life's journey. And that should continue to be friendship as well. So there are going to be some people that don't make it on the journey, but it's an important test for all of us of our compassion. Do we care for them as people, or do we just care for them as employees? And I'd like to think we care for them as people. If your purpose is to improve people's lives, you can't stop caring about the people just because they leave your company. Number 9, organizations have to renew themselves. At the Procter & Gamble company, we only hire from college campuses. In other words, we only promote from within. So everybody enters at the entry level. I entered at the entry level even though I'd been a captain in the U.S. Army. That puts an onus on training. We have a big burden on training. We spend a lot of time on training because one of the things we know is if your boss is not ready to be promoted, you can't be promoted. And I kind of like a system where I always knew that my boss had to work to get me ready to be promoted before they could be promoted. So I like that promotion from within system. Now, if you ask me what differentiates those who succeed at Procter & Gamble versus those who don't, or those who succeed at Wake Forest Business School versus those who don't, or those who succeed in life versus those who don't, I would argue it's one thing. And it's being curious and having the continual insatiable desire to learn new things. And the older you get, the harder it is to learn new things. But times change. And you have to learn new things. So when you graduate, you're not done learning. When you graduate, you're just starting on that learning journey. Don't forget that. Make sure you're learning throughout your life. And as you get older, maybe even ask someone younger to be your reverse mentor, to help teach you the new technology, which you may be not motivated to learn. And I use as an example for this, Procter & Gamble in 1980 when I joined versus Procter & Gamble today. You know, I left the Army in 1980 because I didn't want to move around the world. I thought, you know, I want to join a company where I can have a family life similar to the life I had as a child growing up in Chicago. My family always lived in the Chicago area, and I liked that stability. Little did I know that of my 33-year career with P&G, I've spent 16 years outside the United States. First in Toronto, Canada, then Manila, the Philippines, then Kobe, Japan, then Brussels, Belgium. 16 of 33 years. I didn't predict globalization, and I don't know many other people did. So let's look at this. Globalization was a big factor. Our annual sales in 1980 were $10 billion. Today, they're about $84 billion. What's that multiple in integers? 8, right. Our sales outside the US in 1980 were only 32%. So I wasn't really stupid in thinking that I could have a career in the United States, my entire career. What's it today? 64%. That shows the impact of globalization. Another thing that shows the impact of globalization is the billion-dollar brands. Steve talked about the fact that we have 25 brands that do $1 billion or more in sales a year. Our biggest is Pampers at over $10 billion a year in sales. We have 25 of those brands. What happened? Again, globalization. We were able to take brands from country to country, 200 countries around the world. Look at the employees. We had 61,000 employees then. We have about 120,000 today. What's that multiple in integers? 2, right. So if you measure productivity as sales per employee, what's that multiple? 4. Don't forget that. I mean, productivity, businesses have to constantly be looking for ways to improve their productivity. And globalization is one of the things, technology is another. But look at our plants. How many cases of product have we produced per plant? In 1980, it was about 8 million cases of product per plant a year. Today, 26. Tremendous increase in productivity. So as you're continuing to grow your business, as business leaders, we also have to be concerned about continually improving productivity. And if you do that well, what happens to your stock price? Well, when the day I joined the company, the stock price on a split adjusted basis was $2.32. Today it's about $80. What's that multiple? Certainly the largest multiple on the sheet. The point is, change is going to occur, and change is occurring faster than ever before. And we as leaders have to be focused on renewing the organization, constantly changing the organization for the new environment, increasing the productivity, improving the globalization. And we as leaders have to be doing that ourselves. I love Stephen Covey's. Anybody here read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits Highly Effective People? Great book. One of the best things in there is this story about sharpening the saw, right? He talks about 2 people sawing wood. One fella sits down every once in a while, but his stack is getting higher than the other fella. And Stephen goes up to him and says, I don't understand it. You're stopping, yet your stack is getting higher. And he says, well, I'm stopping to sharpen my saw. We as leaders, we as individuals, need to continually sharpen our saws. We need to be reading, we need to be learning, we need to be growing in order to be more productive members of society. Now, last but not least, maybe the most important of my beliefs is the true test of a leader is the performance of the organization after they're gone. I mean, if you want to judge me on how I did as CEO of P&G, don't look at today, look at 5 years from now. And we'll see if I made the right investments, the right choices that sustain themselves over time. Jim Collins talks about this again. He talks about leadership as building a clock, not telling time. Companies want leaders who build clocks, don't tell time. We want to see your footprints and fingerprints on the business. We want to see that you've created the changes that need to be made for our business to grow in the future. We want to see that you've improved people's lives. So those are my 10 leadership beliefs. Here's my leadership bibliography. This can also be found on the internet if you go to the P&G website. These are the books that I think are the best books on leadership. But I would encourage you again to spend time thinking about what your purpose is in life and what your leadership beliefs are. Simply write down the experiences you've had in life and then think about what they taught you, and that becomes the belief. And again, I would be happy to help you with that process if you found it important. As you continue to work with larger and larger organizations, it's going to be important to know what your leadership beliefs are. And I know the people who work for you will be pleased to know that as well. So thank you very much for your attention. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Torin Martinez. I'm a full-time MBA student.
Torin, pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your insights. It is really appreciated. I loved what you were talking about from Good to Great and Jim Collins, talking about developing, getting the right people on the bus. I'm curious, in today's dynamic world and global market, it's hard to be everything as a leader of such a big company. How did you go about designing a team that would support maybe the areas where you weren't as strong or helps you see the bigger picture?
Well, your question, Torin, I think makes a very good point, which is it's my belief that as a leader you should surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. That you should spend your time trying to figure out where you're not perhaps as qualified. I wanted to make sure I had a tremendous leader of research and development. My undergraduate degree is engineering. I understand engineering, but innovation is so critical to the Procter & Gamble company that I wanted somebody who could lead that innovation process and understand the future of technology, and so much is changing there. So I recruited somebody to do that. I think a great book to read in this regard is Doris Kearns Goodwin's book, Team of Rivals, that describes how Abraham Lincoln surrounded himself by his political adversaries and how he used their disagreements to result in a better end result. Or they tested his own conviction about his beliefs, which is also a very powerful thing to do. So I think that's a great question. Thank you, Torin. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Patrick Willihan. I'm starting the NSA program. And
Thank you, Patrick.
thank you. Thank you very much for speaking. Really appreciate what you've said this
My
morning.
pleasure.
But on your point about a company must do well to do good and do good to do well. In today's modern environment, so many CEOs are pressured by their boards and stockholders to get that immediate performance. What's coming up this quarter, this quarter, this quarter. How, as an executive, do you balance that? How do you build the company but still maintain those performance goals that are set by the company?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you've got to bring the board along with you, and I think you have to bring the other constituencies along with you as well. For example, in the consumer goods business, one of the risks is the environment. And we have to take care of the environment if we expect people to continually buy our products. And many times the investments we would make to take care of the environment may not have an immediate payout. I'm proud to say that the water that leaves our plants is cleaner than the water that goes into our plants. I'm proud to say that we've got over 24 plants now that have zero waste go to landfill. But to do that, we've got to create the mechanisms, the structures, the systems that don't exist today to take care of that waste and turn it into something, whether it's park benches or parking blocks. Those are all required investments. But to make those investments, I think you have to bring the stakeholders along with you. So what we would do is we would talk publicly about it, why it was important, to make sure that the stakeholders came along with us on that journey. It's funny, it's one of those things that you can't stop and start. You kind of have to, and that's why purpose is so important. If you have a purpose, you can get everybody aligned to that purpose, then you can continue that during bad times and good times, realizing you got to get out of the bad times as quickly as possible. But it's a great question.
Yeah.
Listen, Kraken, I'm an MA in management student here at Wake. One thing that we talked about was the widening gap between the rich and the poor, how that's a problem for our overall system of capitalism. One question I have is, how do you expect the private sector to address that problem?
Well, there's a number of ways. Our purpose is about improving lives. We think we improve lives with our brands. We improve lives with our philanthropy. We improve lives with our community service. Brands, let's talk brands for a minute. A baby who wears a Pampers overnight doesn't wake up when they urinate. Babies tend to urinate every 4 hours, right? What happens if a baby wears a cloth diaper, or like the majority of babies in the world, they wear no diaper at all? They wake up every 4 hours. We have clinical data that proves that the baby that sleeps through the night develops better than the baby that wakes up every 4 hours. It's common sense, right? And so what we do is in areas where there's no income, there's very few doctors, we have roving vans. Like I was in the Nile Delta of Egypt not too long ago. In one of these vans, we have a pediatric nurse on board. We go into a village where there are no paved roads, people live in mud huts. We come out, we teach them about taking care of their child. We talk about nutrition, we talk about diapering, we inoculate children. That improves their lives. Now we also teach them about Pampers, and we teach them about the benefits. So that improves their lives. It's good for us financially, but it's also is good for society. I did the same. I was in Lagos, Nigeria. Went to a school where we taught girls about Always, where we taught mothers about Pampers and nutrition. Those kinds of things become very, very important. Philanthropically, the Children's Safe Drinking Water Program, we do that at cost or below cost. We donate a lot of it. So that's done. There's no profit there. So that's part of our philanthropic effort. And then in terms of community service, on our website for employees, we actually have community service opportunities that we make available to them, and many of them are done as teams. People use them as team building exercises. What I've discovered is that people who have a purpose of improving lives don't just turn it off when they leave the office. They want to do something in the community. So we build homes for Habitat Humanity. We do other things like that all over the world. So that's the way we try to bring that to improve people's lives. It's a small effort, but if you don't start somewhere, nothing will get done.
Hi, Mr. McDonald. Thank you.
I'm Bob.
Bob. My name is Aria Aaron. I'm a full-time student in the Master of Arts and Management program. And you talked a lot about, nice to meet you as well. You talked a lot about aligning people with your purpose. How do you go about that, and how do you motivate people to become a part of your team and to believe in your purpose and to believe in your values?
Well, it's a great question. Usually in a situation like this, there's some self-selection, meaning people, the Procter & Gamble company is 175 years old, so people self-select to the company. They're attracted by the purpose, they're attracted by the values, they're attracted by the stories. So they self-select. But then we constantly talk about it, and we provide opportunities to actually activate it. And when it becomes personal is when you know that you've achieved something. And so we typically try to show it. It's interesting, with this purpose, it's relatively easy. I don't know about you, or I don't know about everyone here, but I don't like receiving gifts. They humble me, they embarrass me. I would rather give a gift. Now this is a great thing for my wife, because we've been married, like Steve and his wife, we've been married 36 years. And typically if I see something I think she likes, I buy it for her well in advance of her birthday or anniversary or whatever. But I can't hold it back. I can't wait for that day, so I give her it. I give it to her, and then I have to go buy another one. Why is it that people like to give gifts rather than receive gifts? And I think that has something to do with our purpose and something to do with the way we're wired as human beings. So if I can get people in touch with that, I think they're on board, and I think we can activate the purpose. Good question. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Stephen Panzewski. I'm in the accounting program.
Hi, Stephen.
Can you please elaborate on your international experience and tell us a little bit more about how those opportunities arose, how you needed to adjust your daily routine and your leadership style, and perhaps share one memory from the Philippines, Japan, and Belgium that really stand out to you still today?
Okay, great. That's a fabulous question. Gert Hofstede, there's a book called The Leader's Companion. It's on my list. And it's basically an anthology of the best articles written on leadership. And one of the chapters was written by a guy named Gert Hofstede, who talks about the various cultures around the world. And I tried to become a student of culture and a student of language. Language represents culture, right? So in this book, in this model, Gert Hofstede lays out about 25 vectors. and shows the ends of each continuum. And he gives a survey so you can see where you fall on those vectors. And so I started taking this test a dozen years ago. And for example, one vector might be individuality and
Collectivism.
collectivism. Thank you very much. That's exactly the right word, collectivism. And you would guess that the United States is almost on the end of individualism, and Japan or places in Asia are almost on the end of collectivism. And as I went through these international assignments and I continually took this test, what I discovered was I was changing. Because different kinds of leadership are necessary in each one of these geographies. In Japan, if I had a room of people from around the world, as a leader, I would have to be cognizant that some of the Asian people may not speak up. So I have to provide an opportunity for them to speak up, the space for them to speak up, maybe even call on them, but they would know in advance I would do that. So that's the kind of thing you have to do. But I think this model is very important. The second point I would make is that languages represent cultures. I first learned this when I was at Arctic warfare training in the Arctic Circle. And we were doing some exercises with Inuit, Eskimos, as they're commonly called in the United States. And I discovered that in their language, they had multiple words for snow and multiple words for ice. Makes sense, right? If you're going to ride a dog sled over a frozen lake, you'd like to know how deep that ice is, right? So it makes sense. I also learned it in Japan. In Japan, Nihongo hanashitemasu ka? Ie. Skoshi dake? Skoshi dake? The word kirei means clean. The word kirei also means beautiful. So imagine that, a language, a culture, where the word clean is the same as the word beautiful. There was an article in The Economist magazine back in about 1997 or so that said, in Japan, cleanliness isn't next to godliness, it is godliness. Why is that? Well, you study the Shinto religion, you study other historical things, and you discover the importance of cleanliness in Japan. So if I describe someone as beautiful, I'm describing them as clean. Now, is that important? Well, if you're the largest cleaning company in the world, it's pretty important. What I discovered was, you enter a Japanese home, you take your shoes off, you put on slippers. If you go to the bathroom, you take off those slippers and you put on a separate set of slippers for the bathroom. Most mothers in Japan wash the clothes of the family separate from the clothes of the father who may work outside the home because they don't want to mix outside germs with inside germs. So when it came time to reposition one of our laundry detergents, we put in a chemistry that killed germs. And we said that this brand, Ariel, does not only clean your clothes, but it kills the germs. And it tripled the share of the brand. So that knowledge of the way people live, of language, can translate into business success. Another example, short example, is imagine I appoint you as the general manager of our skincare business in Japan, or in Asia even. It's one of the largest areas in the world for skincare. And I say to you, isn't it interesting that in your Japanese language lessons, you learned about a word, omoshiroi? Interesting, exactly. Interesting. The word interesting is omoshiroi. Do you read kanji?
Yeah, a few.
Okay, omoshiroi is two kanji characters, two Chinese characters. Omo means face, taken alone. Shiroi means white, taken alone. So I ask you, why is the word interesting white face in Japanese? There's no right answer, so please don't. Different? They don't see a lot of them. Geishas paint their face white. Anybody here read Memoirs of a Geisha? Great book. Geishas paint their face white. Why do geishas paint their face white? Purity. White skin's a symbol of purity, beauty. Why is white skin a symbol of purity or beauty? White's clean? I don't know the answer. I mean, you know, I'm asking you questions, I don't know the answer either. But my guess is that in Asia, societies developed around rice paddies. Those who worked in the rice paddy got dark skin. Those who were in deep inside the castle got light skin. So light skin became a symbol of beauty, wealth, position. So if you ever go golfing with someone in Japan, they'll be wearing a turtleneck, long sleeves, and they'll have somebody with them with an umbrella so their skin doesn't get darkened. Now, we're in the skincare business. What's our largest selling, oh, by the way, our largest selling skincare product in Asia is skin whitening. What's one of our largest selling skincare products in Western Europe and North America?
Wrong answer.
Go figure. Why? Why? Well, when I was a kid growing up in Gary, Indiana, which is south of Chicago, my family didn't have much money. We didn't go on vacation. We visited grandparents during vacations. And you know, I'd come back from a holiday vacation, Hanukkah or Christmas, and the teacher, very mean teacher, would say, write an essay on where you went on vacation. And of course, all the kids who were bronzed from their trips to Florida wrote these beautiful essays, and I couldn't afford to go to Florida. So again, maybe dark skin is a symbol of wealth, position, beauty, I don't know. But anyway, the point is, ask the question why at least 5 times to try to figure it out. That's the fun of the consumer goods business around the world, is trying to figure out how to improve people's lives. Thank you very much for your time. It's really been a lot of fun. And if I can help you in any way, please let me know. Figure out what your purpose is in life. Figure out what your beliefs are. Tie them back to the experiences that you've had in life. People want to know. People want to work for people who they know what's important to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I may not have had a great education at the Naval Academy, but I'm smart enough to know when there's a great speaker that comes, despite the fact that he's from Army. So, Bob, that was terrific. That was really, really terrific. Great way to start this chapter in your future. So many challenges in what Bob put out there, and sort of come back to what I started with in my comments to you, and that is, I hope that through Bob's comments, through some of the challenges that I offered to you, that you will continue to develop that leadership model that's going to judge you as a leader, and that you're going to use to train and evaluate and mentor others around you. So in closing, I'd like to present Bob with something that will, I know, adorn his wall with great anxiety and angst, because I know that most of what he has there has to do with the Army and P&G, but now he's going to have to, if he puts it up, have to look at a picture of the two of us together.
I like that.
Navy and Frito-Lay. But Bob, thank you so much.
I cherish this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here this morning. You look terrific. I know that you're not going to dress this way every day for class, but it's helpful to know, at least if you're not in the MA class. I think the MAs are going to continue to dress this way. But for the rest of you, it's been great to be with you this morning. I wish you the best, and I look forward to seeing you many times over the course of the next year, particularly at 6:30 on Thursday, starting September 5th. Have a great day.
Great to be with you. I enjoyed it.